My dear students, the next chapter that we are going to study today is about a non-competitive market, that is chapter 6. In the previous class you have studied about perfect competition market and various features of perfect competition. So, in today's class we are going to learn about the markets which are non-competitive in nature. So, which are those markets and which are the market structures which we are going to learn today? So, today we will start with first type of market which is called as a monopoly market. I am sure that you might have heard about this market, you must be knowing also what is the meaning of this market. So, let us study about this market in detail as to what is the meaning of a monopoly market and how these markets are functioning in an economy. First, let us understand what is the meaning of a word monopoly. Mono means single and poly means seller. So, a market wherein you find that there is a single seller who is selling a commodity is called as a monopolist or a monopoly seller. To take an example of this seller, the Indian railways of our country are the best example that we can give of a monopoly market, wherein these railways are owned by the government of our country. And when we are talking about this monopoly market, some more examples that we can take is of BMTC, or you can take an example of Indigo Airlines. They are having a market share of around 30% where they can take a decision on their own, or some more examples are Google, Microsoft, Windows are the examples of a monopoly market. Mescom is also an example that can be included under a monopoly type of an economy. So, when this is an economy wherein we find that there is a solo seller of a product. So, when there is a solo seller of a product, there is a restrictions on the entry of new firms. New firms cannot enter into the market because these types of market or these types of sellers, they are solo sellers, and as such every firm they cannot themselves enter into the market or they can be there in such types of market. There are restrictions on the entry. When there are restrictions on the entry, there is no substitute that you can find of such type of market. Suppose Indian Railway. Do we find a substitute to a railway? Do we find a substitute to a Google or the Mescom Electricity Board or to the Indigo Airlines? No, there is no substitute for such types of services which are being provided to us. So, there is no close substitute of these commodities which we get in the market, that is a monopoly seller who is giving to us. Next one, when there is a single seller, this seller has each right to discriminate the prices. He can bring about the discrimination on the prices or he can charge uniform price also, it depends on him. A seller may charge different prices to the different people or a seller may charge a uniform price to the different people. For example, there is a doctor in a particular area and in that entire locality there is no other doctor who is there who is providing the services. So, this doctor, when it comes to charging the fees from the people, he can discriminate on the prices that he is charging from the people, and that is the meaning of a monopoly when we are studying about it. So, these are the features that you have studied, the meaning of a monopoly market and how the monopolist is working in an economy. So, when we are speaking about a monopoly, so the people or the customers, that means we are the consumers, we are the customers, we are the price takers. We have to accept the price which is being fixed by the monopolist. I have given you an example of a monopoly. They are the BMTC, Indigo Airlines, Microsoft, Mescom or the railways. So, the prices are fixed here and we have to accept the prices which is being fixed. We cannot ask them or we cannot discriminate on the prices, and we cannot ask the seller that okay, this is not the price, I am not going to buy, so you give me some concessions on that. That is not possible. So, when we are speaking about a monopoly market, here we find that the consumer is a price taker. He has to accept the price which is being fixed by a monopolist. The next concept that we have to study is about the market demand curve. What is the shape of market demand curve? We all have studied about the relationship between the price as well as the demand, and we know that the price and the demand, they are inversely related to each other. What does it mean? It says that when the price is more, the demand is less, and similarly when the price is less, the demand is more. So, here what do we find? When you see the demand curve of a monopolist, DD shows the demand curve, and the demand curve is also called as the average revenue or the price, as we have already studied. So, demand curve is also called as the average revenue. It is also called as the price, that we have already studied in the previous class. Now, in this diagram, what do you see? We will find that we have represented here the y axis shows the prices and the x axis shows the demand that the customer is ready to buy for a particular commodity. And it says that a monopolist, he can sell more commodity only at a lower price. When the price is P1, we will find that the quantity which is demanded is Q1. And when the price is P0, the quantity which is demanded is Q0. That says that higher is the price, lower is the demand, and similarly lower is the price, higher is the demand. So, there is an inverse relationship between the price as well as the demand, which we have studied under the demand lesson, and it is applicable to a monopoly seller also. A seller, if he wants to sell more, suppose a monopolist has decided that he wants to sell more products in the market, he has to reduce the price for a product. And if he wants to sell less, suppose he has decided to sell less, he has fixed the commodity or he has fixed the quantity that he wishes to supply in the market is less, then he can charge less price for that. So, lower is the price, you can sell more quantity of a commodity, and when the price is more, the demand is less, and DD is the demand curve which slopes downward from left to right. Yes, the demand curve slopes downward from left to right under a monopoly market or under a monopoly system, wherein we find that the seller, if he decides to sell more commodity, he can sell more only when he is charging less for the product, and if he wants to sell less, then he can charge a higher price for the commodity. So, that says that the relationship between the price as well as the demand is inverse under such type of market, which is called as a monopolist market or a monopoly firm, wherein we find that there is a single seller of a product, and this seller, just like any other seller in the market, can sell more only at a lower price. That is the point that we must remember, that a monopoly firm can sell more only at a lower price. If the price is more, he cannot sell more. The next concept that we are going to learn is about average revenue as well as the marginal revenue. I am sure that in the last class we have studied about the formula of average revenue and the marginal revenue, and we have also studied in detail about how to find out the average revenue as well as the marginal revenue. So, what is average revenue? Average revenue is nothing but the price that a customer can get or a seller can get by selling a unit of a commodity. So, average revenue is we have a formula also for that, that is TR by Q, and here we find that TR is equal to price into quantity. TR stands for the total revenue and Q stands for the quantity, and wherein we find that the TR is equal to price into quantity and Q is the quantity here and the P is the price level that we have already studied. So, just brushing on that average revenue is nothing but the total revenue divided by the quantity. So, when we divide the total revenue that a monopoly seller has obtained by selling the commodity by the number of units that he has sold in the market, he will get an average revenue. Coming to the next concept, that is marginal revenue. So, what is marginal revenue? This also we have studied. It is an additional income. Marginal revenue is nothing but the additional revenue or additional income which is generated from the sale of an additional unit. A seller, a monopolist, when he is selling an additional unit in the market, so after selling an additional unit in the market, the additional income which he is obtaining is called as an marginal revenue. So, this was about the income that a monopolist is earning by selling the commodity in the market, and we have studied about the demand curve, and demand curve is nothing but a downward sloping curve. The next concept that we have to study is about what is the relationship between average revenue as well as the marginal revenue. So, average revenue and the marginal revenues are the two curves that I have drawn here in the blackboard, you can see. Now, what is the difference that we can see in these two diagrams? Let us try to understand. Now, here I have drawn the average revenue curve. The points that you must remember is that average revenue is always above marginal revenue curve. Marginal revenue curve will be below average revenue curve. I have drawn the diagram. So, AR, that is average revenue, it is above, and marginal revenue is below, is also negative in this diagram, you can see here. And here also you can see that the average revenue curve I have drawn, which is above, and marginal revenue curve is below, which says that these two curves, that means the marginal revenue as well as the average revenue curves, they slope downward. They are sloping down from left to right. You can see that the shape of these two curves, they are sloping down. As you have studied about the demand curve, you have seen the shape of the demand curve. What is the shape of demand curve? It is sloping down, and this demand curve is also called as the average revenue, is also called as the market price. So, same thing we are going to study here also, which says that the average revenue curve as well as the marginal revenue curve, they are sloping downwards, and you can see that AR is above MR curve, and we have drawn these two diagrams wherein let us try to understand as to what is the difference that we can get it from here. So, to start with, here you can see that AR is flatter. I have drawn a little flatter diagram here. See, my dear students, here see 0 axis, x axis as well as the y axis. On the x axis I am showing here the output, and on the y axis we are showing the average revenue as well as the marginal revenue. So, same thing is applicable here. X axis, it is extension to that, it is an output, and average revenue as well as the marginal revenue. This diagram is flatter here, and this diagram I have drawn little steep. You can see that the average revenue curve is little closer. I have drawn in a bit closer form, and even the marginal revenue curve also you can see that it is a bit closer form. So, what is the difference that we are going to see now? So, just check here the diagrams when I have drawn flatter, when average revenue is flatter, the gap between the average revenue as well as the marginal revenue is less. Check here, the gap that you can get or the distance between the average revenue as well as the marginal revenue is less. What is average revenue? Average revenue is nothing but the price that the firm is charging from the customers in the market. So, this is average revenue, this is marginal revenue, and the gap that you can see is a bit less gap you will find between the two, that is average revenue as well as the marginal revenue. I have drawn one another diagram wherein you see that I have drawn this average revenue as well as the marginal revenue in a little closer manner, and this is steeper way I have drawn. So, when we have drawn the when we will find that the diagram is steep, where the average revenue is steep, the gap between the AR and MR, see my hand here, the gap between the AR and MR is broader. There is a more difference, or there is a more distance we can find between the average revenue as well as the marginal revenue when the diagram is steep. When the diagram is flatter, the gap between the average revenue as well as the marginal revenue is less. So, what do we understand by these two diagrams? These two diagrams says that a monopoly, that means a single seller, he can sell more commodities in the market only when the price is less. As we have studied already about the shape of the demand curve, which says that when the price is less, the demand is more. You have studied previously that in the demand curve also, that lower is the price, higher is the demand. So, when the price is less, the monopolist can sell more commodities in the market, and when the price is high, you will find that he cannot sell more. The quantity that is being sold by a monopolist in the market, when the price is high, it will be less. So, that is the difference that we can find from these two diagrams. A diagram, one is having, it is a flatter average revenue and the marginal revenue, and this is a steeper average revenue and the marginal revenue, wherein we find that when it is steeper, the gap between the two is more, and when it is flatter, the gap between two is less. This is the point that you must remember when we are studying about the relationship between the average revenue as well as the marginal revenue of a monopoly firm. It also says that, what does it say? That these two curves are sloping downwards. You can see that the average revenue curve as well as the marginal revenue curves, both the curves are sloping downward from left to right. The direction goes like that. You can see that they are not coming this way. If they slope this side, it says that they are sloping towards the right. They are sloping from left to right, to that direction they are going. So, we will find that the shape of the average revenue as well as the marginal revenue, it is a downward sloping curve. At the same time, it says that both the curves are sloping from left to right, and the next point to remember is that the monopolist can sell more only at a lower price. That is the point we must remember. A single seller of a commodity, and this seller, he can sell more commodity only by charging a lesser price for it, like any other market, and he can discriminate on the prices that he is charging from the customers. It depends on him, since he is a single seller. And we have studied about the average revenue as well as the marginal revenue. So, what is the meaning of average revenue? Average revenue is nothing but the price per unit, per commodity. What is the price that he is charging for a particular product is called as an average revenue. And when we are talking about the marginal revenue is nothing but the additional income that a firm gets by selling a commodity in the market. Extra commodity, when we are producing, a firm has produced an additional commodity, and when it is selling that additional commodity in the market is called as an marginal revenue. But the point to remember is that both the curves, that means the average revenue as well as the marginal revenue, both the curves are sloping downwards from left to right, which means that a seller can get more revenue, or a monopolist can earn more revenue only by reducing the prices in the market. The next concept which we are going to learn is about a short run equilibrium of a monopoly firm. So, where this monopoly firm gets an equilibrium. Where is the point of equilibrium for this monopoly firm? There are two cases which we can study in this concept. So, which are those two cases? First case is that zero cost case, and the second case states that positive case. Now, the positive cost, one is the positive cost and the other one is the zero cost. So, first let us understand as to what is the meaning of this concept which is called as the zero cost. A very interesting topic where you can understand as to how a monopoly is making a profit, a high profit when the cost of production is zero. You have already studied about the formula of profit, which says that profit is nothing but TR minus TC. So, what is TR? TR stands for total revenue. And what is TC? TC is nothing but total cost. That means a monopoly firm will get the profit where they have to minus the cost that it has incurred in the production of that particular commodity. To start with, the first case we are studying about is a zero cost case. So, what is the meaning of zero cost? When the cost of production is zero, so how a monopolist is going to earn the profit in the market? So, to start with, suppose for an example, this example is quite rare because we will not find usually in the real life as so, but still just on an imaginary way we are going to study about the cost when the cost is zero. So, how a monopolist is making the profit. Suppose there is one village and this village is situated quite far away from the city life. It is in some remote area, it is situated in some far away place. In this village, there is one well and the owner of the well is also quite selfish. In what way he is selfish? He has decided that he is not going to allow any person to take the water from this well without paying the money. So, that shows his selfish nature, and he is also acting as a monopoly seller for that particular well, because this well is situated in a far off place and there is no other substitute for the drinking water or the water that the people require for their daily course in any other locality, in any other area we will find that there is no other well. So, what happens that this owner is enjoying this monopoly situation by charging the prices. As you have studied under the features of monopoly competition, that a monopolist can charge a uniform price or he can charge a differentiated price. So, here this seller also, he is in a position to charge different prices from the people, or he can also charge equal price from all the people. So, here you will find that the cost is zero. That means this well is already there and this owner of the well, he has not spent any money in the production of this well. So, herein you will find that the total cost is zero. The owner of the well has not spent any money. So, the cost is zero here, and what is the formula for the profit? Profit is equal to TR minus TC, total revenue minus total cost. So, what is the cost here? Cost is zero because he had not spent any money in the production or in maintenance of this well. This well was already there in that particular village. Profit is equal to TR minus TC. Profit profit is equal to TR minus TC. What is the cost that he has incurred in the construction of this well, in the maintenance of this well, or in finding this well is 0. This well was already there, he has not spent any money. So, here you will find that the cost is 0 because he had not spent any money in the well which is already there. So, what is the profit that he is getting? Profit is equal to total revenue. He is enjoying this monopoly situation, he is enjoying the revenue which he is getting from the people. Now, I have drawn the diagram here, you can see 0 axis, x axis as well as the y axis. X axis shows the output. What is the output for this owner of the well? He is selling the water to the people who are in that particular surrounding. This well owner is selling the water to the people. Now, what quantity, how much quantity of water that he is selling to the people is around 10 buckets of water. The people of that locality, he has said that you can take the water from this well, but you have to pay the money for it. So, the total output, the total water that he is selling to the people is around 10 buckets of water, and he is charging the money for that. So, how much money he is charging? He is charging 5 rupees. That means each bucket of water which he is selling to the people, he is charging 5 rupee for that. Now, he has sold some 10 buckets of water to the people. So, what is the total revenue that he is getting? The total revenue which he is getting from selling the water to the people is 50 rupees without having any cost. So, that is an example of a 0 cost, wherein you will find that the cost is 0. This owner of the well has not spent any money. We will find that this is a total revenue curve. Total revenue curve is going up, it is increasing, and it is maximum at the point A. You can see in the diagram here that the total revenue reaches its maximum at the point A. Here we find that the owner is selling the products, he is selling the water to the people, and he is enjoying the revenue which has come to the point A. Look at the diagram of average revenue as well as the marginal revenue. So, average revenue and the marginal revenue both are sloping downward. You can see that AR as well as the MR, as I have already told you that the slope of the average revenue as well as the marginal revenue in a monopoly market is a downward slope, and always remember that average revenue will be above the marginal revenue. Marginal revenue can be negative here, but the average revenue we will find that it is positive, and it is always placed above marginal revenue. So, now when you see here in this diagram, you can find that the average revenue as well as the marginal revenue, and the total output is 0. We have mentioned here the output as 10 because 10 is the number of buckets of water that he is selling to the people. So, this owner of a well is selling 10 buckets of water, and this is the output that he is selling, and what is the price he is charging? He is charging 5 rupees each bucket of water. Price, total revenue is represented on the y axis. Average revenue is represented on the y axis, marginal revenue on the y axis as well as the price. So, what is the price that he is charging? He is charging 5 rupees each bucket of water that he is selling to the people. So, 5 rupee is the price that is being fixed here, and the output is 10. So, what is the total income that he is getting by selling these output in the market? The total revenue that this owner or this monopoly seller who is getting is 50 rupees. That means 5 multiplied by 10, we will get 50 rupees. That says that he is enjoying this monopoly situation in a particular village where the cost is 0. Point to remember. What is the point to remember? Zero cost case. We are learning about a zero cost case. When the cost is 0, so profit is equal to TR minus TC. Profit is equal to TR minus 0, cost is 0. So, profit is equal to total revenue. What is total revenue? Total revenue that he is getting is, it is about 50 rupees by selling the 10 units of the water to the people of that particular village. So, this is the case of the zero cost. The next case that we have to study is about the positive cost. That means wherein the monopoly seller or the monopolist, he has incurred some cost, he had spent some money. So, when he is spending some money or when he has incurred some cost, what is the level of equilibrium that he can get in the short run? Remember, these are the points which we are studying about a monopoly seller who can get the maximum profit by selling the commodity in a shorter duration, in a short run. So, first case you have studied is about the zero cost, and the next case which we are studying is about the positive cost. The next concept that we have to study is about a short run equilibrium of a monopoly firm in a positive cost case. That means when the firm has incurred the cost, so at that point or at that position, how a firm is earning the profit, that is called as the positive cost case. To start with, x axis as well as the y axis, you can see x axis we are representing the output, the same thing which you have studied, that a seller is selling the water and he is selling around 10 units of water and he is making the profit. So, here the output we have taken, the firm is selling an output, and y axis represents the revenue, cost as well as the profit. So, how much is the revenue that the firm is getting and what is the cost he is spending as well as what is the profit that it is earning. So, to start with, we have drawn here two curves, that is the total cost curve, and the total revenue curve which starts from the 0, that means origin. Please remember this point, that the total revenue will always begin from origin, and so we will find that the total revenue curve, you can see that it is starting or beginning from the origin, and the total cost curve does not start from here, and we are seeing that it is above here and then there is a total cost curve. So, now we are studying about a short run equilibrium of a firm when the costs are positive. Positive cost case, wherein we are studying about the total cost as well as the total revenue curves. So, I have drawn here the two curves, you can see the total revenue as well as the total cost curve. Now, to start with, here you will find that a point will come wherein the TC, that means the total revenue curve, they become equal to the total cost curve. So, at this point D, you will find that the total revenue and the total cost is equal to each other, and at this point what is the level of output? The level of output that you can see is Q2. At point D, TC is equal to TR, that means whatever money that the firm has spent, whatever income, that is a cost that the firm has spent, the firm is getting the equal amount of money. Total revenue is equal to the total cost at point D, as such it is a situation of loss. This area shows the loss. Why it is a loss? Because here you will find that this total cost curve is above total revenue curve. Please see here, my dear students, that this is the total revenue curve, this is the cost curve, and here what you can see that this is the total revenue curve is below, and you will find that the total cost curve is above, which says that the cost is more than the revenue. The firm is spending more than the income that it is getting. The cost curve is above, the revenue curve is below. So, the cost is more than the revenue. So, the firm is having a loss at what level of output, which is Q2. At Q2 level of output, the firm is not having any profit, it is having utter loss because the cost curve is above the revenue curve. Now, further you will see that the total revenue curve starts from origin, it goes up and it is rising, and herein you will find that the total cost curve is below. After the point D, what do you see? That the revenue curve is above and the cost curve is below, which says that after the Q2 level of output, the firm is getting a profit wherein the revenue curve is above the cost curve. Again you see at the point E. At the point E, what happens? Again you will find that this is total cost curve. Total cost curve is rising here and total revenue is falling here. So, at this point also the firm is getting loss. Why the firm is having a loss at this point? Because here what you will find that this is a point where the total revenue as well as the total costs are equal to each other, and also this point D as well as E, they are called as the break even points. No profit, no loss. What is the meaning of break even points? Points D as well as point E. These 2 points are called as the break even points, which says that the firm is not getting any profit and it is also not getting any losses, and at this point TC becomes equal to TR. So, what is profit? When the firm is getting the profit, the firm will get the profit, the formula for the profit is TR minus TC. In the previous case you have studied the cost is 0, but in this case you are learning that the firm is incurring the loss cost. So, Q2 level of output, when you see this is the Q2 level of output. So, at Q2 level of output you can find that here that TC curve is above the TR curve. So, TC, that means this is the TC curve is above the total at Q2 level of output, TC is above TR, and at Q3 level of output also you will find that the TC is above TR, and as such the firm is having losses in both these points. Look at the diagram once again here. Even for the profit also, this shows the loss for the firm, this area, because here again we will find that the firm is not getting any profit here. But this entire area represents the profit that the firm gets, and it also says that between Q2 as well as Q3, when you see Q2 level of output, that means after this point Q2 level of output till the Q3 level of output, the firm is getting the profit. The firm gets the profit, or the firm is making the profit. Now, which is the equilibrium output? We have to find out which is the point where the firm gets the equilibrium. The firm will get the equilibrium only at a point when the profit is maximum. Remember, when we are speaking about the profit of a firm, in the short run, the firm is getting an equilibrium when there is a equilibrium, when the profit is maximum. So, at what point the profit is maximum? The profit will be maximum only at a point where you will find that the total revenue is more than the total cost. Any businessman, you take an example of any person, because economics is not something which we are studying in a theoretical form, it is something which is applicable in our daily life also. So, when you take an example of any businessman, any business person or any man, a person who is doing a business, when he will get a more profit, the profit will be maximum only at a point when the costs are less. That means the money that he has spent is less than the money that he has obtained with the cost that he has spent is less than the revenue that he has obtained. So, profit, remember the formula for the profit that you have studied is profit is equal to TR minus TC, and what is the total revenue? When the gap between the total revenue and the total cost is maximum. The point A and the B shows the highest gap, highest difference we will find. This is the total revenue curve and this is the total cost curve, and you will find that the distance between both the total revenue as well as the total cost is the highest, that is AB. It shows that the firm is making the highest profit, and at this profit what is the equilibrium level of output is Q0. So, at Q0 level of output, we will find that the firm is getting the highest profit. Why it is highest profit case? Because the gap between the total cost as well as the total revenue is the maximum. When the gap between the two is the highest, the firm will get the highest profit. So, two cases you have studied. The first case you have studied is about a zero cost. When the cost is 0, the owner of a well, he has not spent any money in the construction of this well. This well was already there, and what he has done, he has turned selfish and he started to charge the money from the people by selling the water, and that shows that with the zero cost he is earning a revenue which is equal to 50 rupees. He is charging 5 rupees from each person, and that way he had made an income which is called as a zero cost. The next case that you have studied is about the short run equilibrium of a monopoly firm when the cost of production is positive, where using the TR as well as the TC curve. So, here we have drawn the total revenue as well as the total cost curves, and it shows the x axis shows the output and the y axis shows the revenue, cost as well as the profit, and we have drawn the diagrams of the total revenue as well as the total cost. So, what do you see here? At a particular point, that is Q2 as well as at Q3, the cost is equal to the revenue. TC is equal to TR. At point D, TC is equal to TR, and a point to remember, at point D, TC curve is above the TR curve. At point E, again what do you see? TC curve is above the TR curve. The firm is having a loss, and it is a situation of a break-even point wherein the firm is not in a situation to earn profit or the losses. So, what is the formula for the profit? The firm will get the maximum profit only at a point when the gap between the total revenue as well as the total cost is maximum. Yes, so you see here in the diagram, here the gap is less. You will find that the TR and TC curves we have drawn, the distance or the gap between the TC and TR is less. Here also you will find that though it is increasing, but it is not maximum, and only at the point A and B you will find that the difference between the total revenue as well as the total cost is highest, and the firm is making a highest profit and attained the equilibrium with the output Q0. Further, we can say that how the firm will get the profit. So, the profit situations or the profit making situations for the firm, that is a monopolist firm, is from Q2, Q1, Q0 and Q3. You can see after Q2, because here the firm is having loss, here the firm is having the losses. So, only between the Q2 to Q3 output the firm is making the profit in the market. So, that was about a short run equilibrium of the firms with the two conditions that you have studied. The first is about the zero cost and the second is about the positive cost. That means when the firm has spent the money, when the cost is involved. So, when the cost is more, profit will be less. When the cost is equal to the revenue, there is a loss for the firm. Here when you see the profit curve also, we will find that this is a loss situation, this is also a loss situation. So, only at Q2 to Q3 the firm is getting the profit, and this gap, that is AB, it shows the highest difference between the total revenue as well as this is the total revenue and the TC curve. So, total cost curve, total revenue curve, the gap between the two is the maximum. That means whatever cost that the firm has spent, is less than whatever revenue that it is getting. So, revenue is more, and this is called as the equilibrium output that the firm is attaining. And when we are talking about the profit that the firm is getting is between Q2 to Q3 level of output, we will find that the firm is attaining a profit in a monopoly market. So, a single seller who is trying to get the maximum profit in the market by the two situations, that is a positive case, we will find the cost wherein the positive costs are there as well as the zero cost situations are there.